cellular oxygenation. These are cells. Now, that's not really what a cell looks like. A cell actually looks a little more something like this, because cells are complex. They've got, mitochondria, Golgi apparatus, they got this plasma membrane, all kinds of stuff. They got the chromatin, but basically what's important to remember is that cells are complex. So let's just write that here so we don't forget that. Cells are complex. Cells also need oxygen, and oxygen is non-metallic. It should be, colorless, there should be no taste, odorless, and it's got here the 8 protons with the 8 neutrons, and it's naturally occurring in the environment, relatively very stable, but the important thing about oxygen is that it drives life. Oxygen also is primarily absorbed through our lungs. We get our oxygen by breathing air. This is how most mammals do, and I'm going to assume that it's only mammals watching this video. But there's other ways that we actually get oxygen, and some of these are ways that people have not heard of. One of these ways that we can get oxygen is actually absorbing it through our skin. Our skin is very porous. Another way that we can get oxygen is intravenously, and this should be done only by a licensed physician. And the final way is orally, in a liquid form, and that's the one that I'm mostly going to be talking about in this video. I'm also going to talk a little bit about absorbing it through our skin. However, I'm not going to talk about intravenous because that is something that should only be done with close watch of a licensed physician. Now, it's really important to think about the ways we get our oxygen, because we are increasingly living lives and we're not getting as much. We're cooped up inside, we're sealing up our houses to save on electric bills, or simply matters of air pollution. We're getting less oxygen through our lungs. So we have to go about it in other ways, such as, I said, doing it orally, in a liquid form, or through our skin. Now, not getting enough oxygen is really bad. And the reason it's bad is because oxygen drives life. So in order to be happy, we need to be getting lots of oxygen, as well as our cells. Our cells need oxygen. Now let's go back to talking about cells. You remember these guys? Remember little adorable cells that don't actually look accurate, but they serve the purpose for this video? Cells need oxygen. And 80% of the metabolic action is driven by oxygen. And these cells, they use the energy from oxygen to actually, I would say, do as a cell should do and keep us alive. Whether it's by, a beating heart, a active digesting system, or, a high complex thought process by our oh so important brain. Which leads me to the next point. Not only should the cells do everything that they should do to keep us functioning, but there's another part of our body that really needs oxygen. So, when looking at a person, when we get oxygen, again, the places that we typically absorb it are, through our lungs, right here, through our skin, which could be, pretty much anywhere that we have skin, orally, and intravenously, but I'm not talking about that. But what's really important is another part of our body that needs oxygen is the brain. Now, what I'm going to do here is that's our brain, just for demonstration purposes. That is our brain. And the brain needs oxygen. Now, our brain is very small in comparison to the size of the rest of our body. While I'm not saying we have small brains, in fact, compared to most mammals, we have very large brains. We do have, this is right here is much smaller than all of this right here. What I'm trying to get at, though, is that 25% of all of the oxygen that we need, 25%, so you don't forget that, goes directly to the brain. So our brain needs 25% of the oxygen that we need. That's a fourth of it, and that's a lot compared to the rest of our body size. So if we don't have enough oxygen, this causes a problem. And it's important to make sure that you have a lot so you can keep your brain functioning, so you guys can be doctors or lawyers or the supreme of your coven or president. Whatever it may be, make sure that your brain is functioning at a high capacity. Basically, keep oxygenated. Being oxygenated is also important for the immune system. What the oxygen does is it forms white blood cells, it helps fight diseases, it maintains and repairs cells, and it also detoxifies cells. So when all these things are going on, our body is happy and healthy. It's important, to be athletic. The most athletic people make sure that they are staying oxygenated. And let's get back to our cells while we're talking about, repairing and detoxing our cells. Alright, so remember these guys, right? My art of a cell drawing. Well, these guys, they're like the warriors of our body. And they don't really use swords, but what they do use as a weapon is oxygen. Like I said, these are our cells, and they have tools or weapons, as I like to call them, such as oxygen. And I'm going to give Oxygen the sword because he's the real fighter here. What they do is they fight to keep your body healthy. The oxygen, right here, the oxygen attaches itself to basically the germs. Oh, germs. Oxygen attaches itself to it, and it neutralizes their positive charge. Okay, so this was a positive charge, and it has been neutralized. And then it makes them easier for us to expel them from our body, and we are going to be happier and healthier. So this leads us to the question of, if cellular oxygenation is so important, how do we make sure that we're keeping our cells oxygenated? Well, one of the ways, there's a lot of ways, making sure you just get more fresh air is one thing, but another way to do that, and I would say it's a much simpler way, is with H2O2. So I'm going to show you guys what H2O2 is. For those of you that don't know, it's commonly referred to as hydrogen peroxide. And what H2O2 is it's water, which would be 2 hydrogen, H2, and 1 oxygen, O, and then H2O2 adds an extra oxygen. So what you get is H2O2. Now it's really important that you only use food grade and that you use 35%. So let's put that up here, 35% food grade, 35% food grade hydrogen peroxide. And you can't get this in the stores. What you can get in the stores is usually 2 to 3%. And the problem with this is that usually it's got a lot of contaminants such as metals, which are not good for you. We do not want to be absorbing these contaminants. So if that's the wrong color, let's put it in red here. So 2 to 3% store-bought. No, don't do it. Just go online and buy 35% food grade. I will put some links below in the description so you guys can have some reputable places that I would recommend buying from. So going back to talking about this, essentially what the H2O2 does is when you take it orally in a low concentration, and again, buying the 35% will save you money when you dilute it down, it gives you the chance to either use it as a skin wipe, because remember, we absorb oxygen through our skin because it's very porous, and we also take it orally, and we can basically take this 35% food grade H2O2 and dilute it down and take it in drops. And again, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not prescribing anything here, but I am telling you to make sure that you stay oxygenated in whatever means that may be, and I just prefer to do this method with 35% food grade H2O2. The other great thing about buying this, I found, is, I use it for everything. I use it to clean my pool. I use it to, wipe down my vegetables with, anything. But basically, what is important is that you guys keep oxygenated. So again, going back to just cover up why you should stay oxygenated, these are your cells. They are the warriors of your body. They are the guards. And you want to make sure that they are healthy. And you do this by giving them oxygen. So that way we have a high-functioning brain. Remember our brain that we drew? And oops, that's not there. Make sure we have a high-functioning brain. And to make sure that we're being strong and we're staying active. And this can all be done with cellular oxygenation through what I like to use of 35% H2O2. So basically, whatever means it is, stay oxygenated. It's important. Your cells need it. It's what keeps you healthy. And in the meantime, like us, subscribe us, check out more videos, because I'm going to give more information on dilution rates for hydrogen peroxide. I'm going to talk more about cellular oxygenation just in specific. Message us, get on our blog, and look forward to the future videos. And most importantly, stay oxygenated.